Yesterday began Holy Week. This is the week that leads us into Easter. It's a journey that ends with an empty tomb. Yesterday is what Christian tradition has often called Palm Sunday, the day when Jesus arrives in Jerusalem for the last time, only to be led out to his execution. One of his early followers, Matthew, describes his arrival in this way. They brought the donkey and the colt. They placed their coats on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their coats on the road. Others cut branches from trees and spread them on the road. Some of the people went ahead of him, and some followed. They all shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven!" When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up. The people asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus. He is the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." So Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a donkey, which to us is a bit bizarre, maybe even humorous. But to the crowd that had gathered in Jerusalem that day, it was loaded with meaning. It was reminiscent of a prophecy in the Old Testament, a prophecy that talked about a coming king. Here's the words of that prophecy. "Say to the city of Zion, see, your king comes to you. He is gentle and riding on a donkey. He is riding on a donkey's colt." You see, Jesus came into Jerusalem as a king. And not only did he ride into Jerusalem as a king, he came at a time when Israel's nationalism was at its highest, the Passover feast. It was like their 4th of July, their Independence Day. It's a day when they celebrated God's delivering them from Egypt, when they walked out of slavery without having to raise a sword against one of the most powerful nations in the world. It was a time of celebration, not only celebrating what God had done in the past, but anticipating what God might do in the future. You see, it went something like this. If God stepped into history and delivered us in the past, then He might just step in again and deliver us in the future. And at this time, in Jesus' time, Israel was longing for a king to come in and to free them from Roman oppression, an empire that was taxing them into poverty. And so yes, Jesus rode into Jerusalem as a king that day, at a time when Israel longed for a king. But was He the king that Israel longed for? Yes, He was. But He wasn't. You see, kings leverage their power to maintain their power. They increase their territories. They amass armies. They build weapons to protect their boundaries. They wear crowns. They sit on thrones. They institute taxes. They build monuments to their own greatness. And yes, Jesus came as a king. But He left the palace, His heavenly palace, to walk a fallen earth. He wore a crown, but it was a crown of thorns. He paid taxes. He submitted to death in order to destroy sin. And He only had one lasting monument to His name, a cross, a symbol of execution. So yes, Jesus rode into Jerusalem to die as king. So as you start Holy Week, I want to encourage you to walk in the way of King Jesus and not the kings of the world, to leverage your power to benefit others and not just for your own gain, to invest in making other people successful rather than promoting your own success, to not always have to be first, but to choose to go last, to bless those beneath you, your students, your employees, your children, to encourage people with your words, not tear them down, to pick those kids on your spring baseball team that might not be the most athletic, to bless those with your influence. You see, Jesus did ride into Jerusalem yesterday, but He rode in to die as king.